Blessed Easter, dear friends. I am still so filled with gratitude and just spiritual nourishment from our Holy Week liturgies. And I just want to thank everyone who helped make this such a wonderful Holy Week, and especially Easter Sunday, when we were able to uh, worship in person with reservations, and the music was beautiful. The church was looked beautiful, was set beautifully. Uh, People were able to participate in the liturgy even if they couldn't be here, and so I'm grateful as always for Adam, Mead, and others who make our technology possible for us to continue to be together as a family of Jesus at St. Luke. So thank you to everyone, acolytes, servers, worshipers. It was a wonderful, wonderful Easter. This coming Sunday, the second Sunday of Easter, we will have a guest preacher, and we will see this video made by our bishop, Yehiel Curry. Bishop Curry's sermon will be shared on the screen at our in-person worship, and of course will be shared with all of you if you're worshiping at home as a part of the service. So, guest preacher, our bishop, this coming Sunday. One of my favorite Lutheran authors, and also a friend, is Walter Wangerin Jr. He teaches at Valparaiso University. He won a National Book Award for The Book of the Dun Cow, and he's a wonderful, sensitive author and speaker as well. He wrote a piece called The Ragman, which I used to read on Easter and a couple of times to our congregation, and every year I take it out and just read it myself. I'd like to share it with you now. The Ragman by Walter Wangerin. Early one Friday morning, I noticed a young man, both handsome and strong, walking the alleys of our city. He was pulling behind him an old cart filled with clothes and crying, "Rags, new rags for old. I take old rags, rags." Now here's a wonder, I thought to myself, for the man stood 6'4". His arms were like tree limbs, hard and muscular, and his eyes flashed with intelligence. Couldn't he find better work than this, to be a ragman in the inner city? I followed him. Curiosity drove me, nor was I disappointed, for very curious things began to happen. The ragman saw a woman sitting on her back porch, sobbing into her handkerchief, sighing and shedding 1,000 tears. Her shoulders shook. Her heart was breaking. The ragman stopped his cart and walked toward the woman. "Give me your rag," he said so gently, "and I'll give you another." He slipped the wet handkerchief from her hand, then laid across her palm a linen cloth so bright and new it shined, and her eyes lit up. But as he began to pull his cart again, he did a remarkable thing. He put the damp, snotty handkerchief to his own face, and then he began to weep as grievously as she had done, his shoulders shaking, but she was left with not a tear. Soon he came upon a little girl who wore a bandage over her forehead. It was soaked with blood, and blood dripped down her cheek. The ragman looked upon this child with pity, then took a lovely yellow bonnet from his cart. "Give me your rag," he said so kindly, "and I'll give you mine." The child could only gaze at him while he loosened the bandage, removed it, and tied it to his own head. Then he set the bonnet on her head, and I gasped at what I saw. For when the ragman took her bandage, the terrible wound went with it, and when he bound that rag to his own forehead, a redder, brighter blood ran through it, his own. Rags, I take old rags, the sobbing, bleeding, strong, intelligent ragman cried. It was 8 in the morning. He began to hurry. He spoke to a man who leaned against a tavern. Are you going to work? He asked. The man shook his head. Do you have a job? He asked. The man said, Are you crazy? He pointed to the sleeve of his jacket. Stuffed, it was flat. The cuff stuffed into the pocket, for the man had no arm. Give me your jacket, the ragman said, and I'll give you mine. Such quiet authority in his voice. The one-armed man took off his jacket. So did the ragman, and I shook my head at what I saw. For the ragman's arm stayed in his jacket, and when the other put it on, he had 2 good arms, thick as tree limbs, but the ragman had just one. Go to work, he said. After that, he saw a drunk lying unconscious under an army blanket. An old man, hunched, wrinkled, and sick. He took the blanket and wrapped it around himself. For the drunk, he left a new set of clothes. And now he hurried, and I ran to keep up. Although he was weeping and bleeding at his forehead and pulling the cart with one arm only, although he stumbled for drunkenness, calling again and again, exhausted by age, trembling for sickness, although he was short now and frail as a stick, yet he went very fast through the alleys to the edge of the city and out of it. The little old ragman, he came to a garbage dump. There, on top of a hill, he swept a space clean of the thick filth. Then with a handkerchief, a bandage, a jacket, and an army blanket, he lay down, and at 3 in the afternoon, he died. On Sunday morning, I woke to a violent light. I squinted and looked, and suddenly shouted, "The ragman!" There was the ragman, folding the blanket neatly, a scar on his forehead, but alive. The ragman, the Christ.